Hi, this is Dr. Sana Hashmi. I'm a fellow at Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation. And this week in my Print Eye on China column, I talked about how China and its internet is using last year India Pakistan confrontation to advertise the China Pakistan jointly developed JF-17. So, this is also known as Thunder Dragon. So, what is circulating on Chinese media is actually a sales pitch. This is a story that is being built around a claimed victory that actually never really happened, and which is now being recycled to make the JF-17 look combat proven, attractive, and cost effective. So the world has, of course, moved on. This is 2026. We are struggling with a lot of issues that are going on, primarily with the US intervention in Venezuela, Iran. A number of things are going on right now. But China and Pakistan have not really moved on from 2025. And they're still pushing this line because it helps the arms market for China. And as usual, India sits at the center of the story. India is the centerpiece of this discourse, even when it is actually not really named. So, this actually tells us how both China and Pakistan have been fixated, obsessed with India, and how they're using India to increase to supposedly the search demand in the sale of JF-17. So, over the past year, Chinese state media, social platforms have been busy amplifying Pakistan's version of events from the India Pakistan confrontation. And I think this was very much obvious last year. All the Indians actually saw it. And headlines talk about rushing countries rushing to buy fighters from Pakistan. Um, Commentators claim Pakistan prestige has suddenly shot up primarily because of the self-proclaimed victory in the confrontation with India. And on Weibo, the hashtags such as JF-17 Thunder is pushed hard, as if it's already a global hot commodity, hot currency globally. So none of this is really organic. It is actually a coordinated narrative building. The JF-17 is the main prop of this narrative, of this exercise. And if you go by the Chinese online retellings, a JF-17 Block 3, the most advanced version of the JF-17, is said to have logged onto an Indian Rafale, fired a PL-15 missile, and even disrupted India's S-400 system. This is all very imaginary, of course. So there is no credible evidence for any of these claims that are being propagated on the Chinese internet just to sell the JF-17 or Chinese arms that have been used by Pakistan. But of course, they sound impressive. This is the narrative that they're trying to establish, and that is the point. At a price of around 25 to $30 million, far cheaper than Western fighters, the aircraft is sold or being talked about as combat tested, affordable, and free of political conditions. And one popular post on Weibo even actually called it the AK-47 of fighter jets. So the message is pretty clear here that what they're trying to showcase is that it is cheap, it is reliable, and good enough for everyone else. And this is why they are trying to propagate. Countries such as Bangladesh, Indonesia are rushing to buy Chinese weapons through Pakistan. And this is why Pakistan's role in this story is so crucial. Chinese commentators portray Pakistan not as a dependent buyer anymore, but as a confident military exporter and strategic player. The idea from their perspective is to show Pakistan as a proof that a smaller country can climb the value chain with Chinese help. And the key here is the Chinese help, of course. According to this version, everyone benefits. Pakistan is earning foreign exchange. China is expanding its arm market. Buyers get low cost capability, and financiers like Saudi Arabia are gaining influence. Of course, this is a story that really hasn't flown yet. Pakistan is shown as having graduated from doing other countries' dirty work to becoming a distributor for China's defense industry. But listen carefully, and India keeps coming back into this picture. And Chinese analysts repeatedly compare Pakistan's supposed rise with India's defense model. India is painted as dependent on expensive Western imports, unable to build capability, and stuck paying high cost without learning much. This contrast, of course, serves China well. Every JF-17 sold through Pakistan's stock still locks buyers into Chinese engines, radars, avionics, and missiles. and Beijing gets the money and influence without taking direct political heat. And Pakistan gets the spotlight, China controls the supply chain. So this is a narrative that they're trying to project. And another trick is to rebrand limitations as strategy. So, of course, there's a lot of debate, discussion about how JF-17 is still third generation aircraft. So, how it is really going to benefit the buyers. So, of course, they are coming into support of that as well. They're still not giving the most advanced weapons jet aircraft to Pakistan. So, when critics point out that JF-17 is not a high end fighter, a number of Chinese commentators respond that it was never meant to be one. It was always pitched as a bridge between old aircraft and expensive modern jets. It was always supposed to be affordable, sustainable, with few political strings attached. So the India Pakistan clash is used to claim that the aircraft relevance has now been proven, in quotes, of course, and that hesitant buyers are finally coming around and they're reaching out to Pakistan. Even in China, despite this, some voices are more cautious than optimistic. Then Pakistan defense export targets are widely seen as aspirational, where Pakistan remains heavily dependent on China for engines, avionics, and core system. And industrial capacity still remains limited. And the real control was still in Beijing hand. And this idea that Pakistan would be able to get a $13 million dollar deal for this JF-17 is something that is far, far fetched. And this was mentioned in one of the commentaries that is getting a lot of attention. So defense exports may bring Pakistan short-term relief and some leverage maybe, but they do not essentially fix structural economic problems that Pakistan has been facing. And strip away the hype, a simpler reality remains that this is less about Pakistan's rise and more about China's urgency to push, I would rather call it desperation, to push its weapon into the global market, especially as Indian systems like BrahMos are gaining so much attention and traction. Countries such as Philippines, Vietnam, and even Indonesia, they are showing a lot of interest and there are actually credible buyers for BrahMos. So for China, Pakistan is actually the conduit, only the salesman, and it might just be a political buffer. So the JF-17 may appeal to buyers who want something cheap and uncomplicated, and something maybe with less preaching, but JF-17 may appeal to buyers to a certain extent, to certain limit. And claims of combat success and market transformation are absolutely inflated and unproven. There are not a lot of evidence and from credible sources that are actually could prove the claim that are being made by the Chinese sources and Pakistani sources. And price alone and geopolitical constraints alone do not really solve long-term operational or strategic limits for countries. And Pakistan, if you ask me, and even if we look at what is happening specifically after May 2025, the confrontation between India, Pakistan after Operation Sindoor, Pakistan hasn't really escaped its status of being a pawn of the Western world. This is what the Chinese narrative has been about Pakistan in the past 1 year. It might just have changed the patron. It might not be a pawn of the Western world, but the JF-17 success story says far more about China's ambition than about Pakistan independence or influence. So from maybe the geopolitical pawn of the West, now Pakistan has firmly become the proxy state for China. And this is out in open right now. And that is the real story behind the noise. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.